UConn dominates their senior day. You're locked on.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, I want to take a moment to say how thankful we are for all of you. We appreciate your support. All of our everydayers out there, you're the reason why we continue to grow. We're proud to say we're the only daily podcast covering UConn men's and women's basketball, the hoops capital of the world. And we're thrilled to bring you that coverage because you deserve it. To show our gratitude, we're giving back. We're donating 10% of our revenue to Husky Ticket Project, helping send kids to UConn games. A special shout out again to my everydayers, maybe my 2 times a dayers. We're going to have to call you something different if you're listening to both the UConn men's and women's basketball shows. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. All right, great performance from the UConn women, a win over Marquette on senior day. Let's bring in Bella Tamano of Hoops Capital of the World, and of course, a contributor to Locked On UConn a couple times a week here. All right, Bella, great win from UConn. I thought their defense was stifling again. Offense was nothing to sneeze at, scoring 92 points. Strong performances from Paige, Azzi Fudd, others. Sarah Strong, obviously. Do you think this was Azzi's last ride? She was pretty non-committal in terms of, she has a year of eligibility. She did go through the senior day festivities. What's your thoughts there?
So, yeah, I definitely thought that yesterday was a little bit interesting. Obviously, last year you saw Paige announce it right at senior night saying, this is not going to be it for me as a Husky. Would have expected something similar for Azzi if she was, if she did have the intent on staying. I think for her, she wants to leave the door open, which I think is smart. I don't even know if she knows if it's her last ride at, with UConn, her last game at Gampel, regular season game at Gampel. I think it's going to depend on how they do in the tournament. And I mean, obviously she has been plagued by injuries. Who knows if she goes down again, obviously don't want to wish it on her, but.
No, I know. Well, Gino did say that he's given her a deadline. They said it on the air last night. I don't know if it was Fanta because I know he was on the call, but essentially Gino has said he doesn't want it to go longer than past the Big East tournament. So we should get some finality. Whether she adheres to that is another thing, right? Because I think he's trying to at least put a little pressure on her because it's unfortunate, but you kind of have to, right? Because the transfer portal opens up before the tournament's over. So right. We're hoping that you and I are both in Tampa Bay covering the team, right? Mm-hmm. When they're playing in the Final Four. So they're at a disadvantage when it comes to transfer portal, the same way the men were last year when it came to transfer portal, guys that already left. And so women are already going to be in the transfer portal. I think it's March 24th is the transfer portal when it opens. Could be a little earlier with the women. I'll have to double check on that. But I know it's mid to late March. And if your last game is April 4th or April 7th, April 5th or April 7th, you're talking about a couple weeks of not being able to focus on roster construction for next year that teams can kind of get the jump on you. So I don't know. I think that's definitely Gino's concern is they didn't get a ton of name brands in the in recruiting this year. They got some good international players. They got some projects, but they missed out on Agat McCord. We saw that over the weekend too. So I think he really is going to hit the transfer portal hard in terms of finding another Caitlin Chen-esque type person, if not 2. I know Carolyn Ducharme is coming back, but I just feel like Gino has got this mentality now where, now that once the season's over, we'll get to that he's going to kind of turn himself into more of a transfer portal guy because it's a necessity in today's game.
Yeah, absolutely. That part I must have missed about Azzi, so my bad on that one. So yeah, if she does have that deadline in mind, if she does adhere to that, I think it's beneficial to the team too, because I think going into the tournament, it could light a fire under some people. Like, not only let's win it for AZ, but or let's win it for Paige, but if, obviously if it is AZ's last ride, some people might, okay, like let's do it for AZ too. Let's recognize that it could be it's going to be the end for them in a UConn uniform. And I definitely like the idea. Obviously, I feel like a lot of people are saying, okay, Gino's a little bit outdated. His methods are a little bit, old school. So I do think that him, laying down, putting his foot down and saying, okay, like we have to make moves here in the transfer portal. I think that's definitely the right call because.
Well, yeah, I think the reason why he's doing it is because I think they said this on the air, and I know I've read this because I've been following AZ's story with her recovery. She doesn't like to make decisions. Like she's she's really kind of trying to focus on day to day and being in the present. And I think she feels like in the past that she always looked too far ahead, and that's the reason why she was devastated by these injuries. And it's not that it's the cause of it. It's that sometimes when you look ahead, you forget like what's happening right in front of you, right? So yeah. I think that is a really fair point for her. So Gino, as the leader, as the kind of the leader of this program, her her kind of commander in chief, if you will, right, is literally laying the law down and saying, all right, if you're not going to make the decision, I'm going to set a timeline for you, kind of just the way a professor would. Like, you may not want to do an assignment, but if you don't do it, there's consequences, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think he's going to be like, all right, AZ, you're gone if you don't. But I think the timeline is pretty firm-ish, and I think we should probably hear something there. Do you think if we do get a decision from her, like, do you think the lack of titles, because how you're attributed to being a UConn great is by how many rings you won, the type of hardware you brought to stores, not on top of the NIL aspect of it. Do you think that those two factors will kind of be a decider of whether she stays at UConn or whether she enters into the WNBA draft?
I do think so. If you're talking, NIL stuff, you're going to probably make more money if you do stay at UConn. Because I think we talked about this. I don't know. I think we talked about this last episode or a couple episodes ago. The base salary is $75,000, $100,000,
something like that. Yeah.
So, you can make that. Paige is probably making that, just let alone more than she's making with that, with her deals with like Duncan and things like that. So I do think that the NIL is a big factor. Now, the other thing, though, going back to that for AZ is I think Gino setting that timeline on her decision is good because of it'll take so much pressure off during the tournament. Already having that decision made up won't let her think too, like you said, think too far ahead, right? She'll be able to just focus on the tournament. But yeah, kind of coming to NIL, you can make so much money now in college that it's like, why not do that next year? And for women's basketball, I think that's really what it comes down to. I mean, even somebody like Paige, obviously, technically she does have one more year of eligibility left. But obviously she's going to go to the, WNBA, but, she would probably make more money in college. Now, she'll probably get a ton of, sponsors and ads in the WNBA, so she'll be fine. But yeah, NIL is different.
Yeah, I think now, though, I think the salary angle is definitely one aspect of it. But I definitely think with how visible women's sports is, especially women's basketball, when you get an opportunity to go pro, you now have the ability to market yourself in a way that is different than when you're in college. So is she making probably $75,000 a month, Paige? Yeah, she probably is making that at UConn. But she's also going to probably double or triple that when she goes to Dallas. And her salary is going to be inconsequential. It's kind of like being a business owner and paying yourself a salary, but your business is worth like $200 million. It doesn't, like, you're not paying yourself that money. You're paying yourself like a reasonable wage. Like she's getting a reasonable wage to play basketball for the Dallas Wings next year. But between the amount of endorsements she's going to get between Nike and Verizon and Dunkin' and then nationwide, I mean, there's an entire area of Dallas-Fort Worth that is chomping at the bit to offer her the moon and the stars. And I'm not talking like thousands of dollars, millions of dollars. She's going pro for that reason. And also, it's like a turning of a page. It's like a closure thing. Like if you're an athlete that has had a lot of adversity at one spot and you have this one last shot to potentially win a national championship and then move forward, if she doesn't get it, that's fine. She still needs to move on and get some closure that way. But if not, you're going to go out on your white horse with UConn and then go into the pros. And I don't think Azzi has that same feeling. I think Azzi has an opportunity to potentially come back. I actually think she stays. That's my gut. If someone had to say, all right, Bella, gun to your head, you have to choose if she's staying or going.
I think she stays. I think there's still some of her story at UConn. There's still more things to write for her. I think that she's got some unfinished business. I think not playing with Paige will be a little bit good for her in a way, because I think she's excelled when she hasn't played for Paige. And I know, her and Paige's relationship is super close, but sometimes it's a little tough to be in somebody's shadow to some extent. And I think her staying at UConn, kind of creating her a little bit of a new identity. I know, she already has one, but I think she needs to create that new identity for herself and play like a full, really, really healthy, like mentally healthy season. You know what I'm saying? Because if she stays healthy for the rest of the season and does stay next year and stays healthy for it, I think like her mind will be way, way more clear. This year, obviously, she battled some injuries, so she still probably has some stuff in the back of her head. So I think she'll stay. And I don't know what the team's going to look like. Obviously, there's a lot of uncertainties, but I do think that she'll stay.
I couldn't agree more. All right, when we come back, we had a surprise Ice Brady performance, and we saw a little Carolyn Ducharme. Let's talk about the game itself and a little bit about those two coming up after the break. Attention, Locked On UConn fans. Ever wish you could directly support your favorite UConn athletes and be part of their journey? Well, now you can with Roy, the NIL app that puts fans in control. Before Roy, NIL deals were often handled behind closed doors, and fans like you didn't have a clear way to directly support the players you love. Now with Roy, you can make a real impact and feel closer to the athletes representing UConn. With Roy, you get to choose the players you want to support, decide how much you want to contribute, get exclusive content straight from the athletes you back. The best part, if your player transfers, you get your money back. So it's a risk-free way to show your support and make your voice heard. Support your favorite players directly and help shape the future of UConn sports. Download the Roy app now from the App Store and start backing UConn athletes the way they deserve, with transparency, trust, and a real impact. This is the future of college athletics. Join it now by downloading Roy and supporting your favorite players. All right, we're back on Locked On UConn with your host, Mark Zanetto, and joining me, as always, a couple times a week here, Bella Tamano with Hoops Capital of the World, and a Locked On UConn co-host with me. All right, so I was super encouraged by Ice Brady's performance yesterday, because Marquette is actually known as being a pretty big and block shot heavy team. You saw it in the game yesterday. They blocked a ton of shots, and so Ice gave them a little bit of extra physicality. Do you think this was her best game yet?
I would definitely. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so. She had 7 points, which wasn't huge, but you didn't need her to do much in that regard. But she gave you 16 minutes, which, again, I think it is perfect, right? Like, she did exactly what she needed to do when she was called upon, and she hasn't done that yet this year. Like, this year, when she was in the starting lineup, things weren't good. When she came off the bench, things weren't good. You couldn't depend on her. Yesterday was a day you looked at her and you felt, okay, like, we have Ice on our bench right now. She's giving us ample minutes, and did exactly, like I said, she did exactly what she needed to when she needed to do it. Didn't play beyond what was asked of her. So I do think this was definitely her best game thus far. And it's nice. It's nice at this point in the season too.
Yeah, you saw her like really, like she seemed like she was in a good place. She was happy. She had a buzzer beater at halftime that everyone celebrated. That was pretty cool. That was the prevailing theme, but also she seemed just like unburdened. So that was nice to see her. She felt like she was tight earlier this year. Good to see her back. And then you had Carolyn Ducharme getting some run today. She's had a season full of injuries. Obviously, just kind of getting back from the head and neck injuries. So we weren't really sure. We talked about this about a month ago about her maybe coming back for a Big East tournament. They've kind of gotten her in there a few times just to kind of get her feet wet. Do you think she's ready for a real role in March, or is this going to be kind of spot duty here and there? Not necessarily if they're killing a team, but just to kind of get her involved a little bit to spell either Sarah or spell even, deeper into the bench. If you're giving, Aubrey some minutes, like if then she comes out, like, is that going to be Caroline's role moving forward?
Yeah, I don't see her having a big role in March. I think it's really going to be almost if you're in like dire need, if somebody's in some big foul trouble, or you're like, okay, like we're ice cold right now, we need a shot, something like that, like turn to her maybe. I really don't see her playing a big role. I think this is almost like some rehab minutes, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, obviously it's rehab minutes, but almost like you're playing some bad teams, like just get her some practice, just get her some time. But I just don't see her. I just don't really see her playing a big role. I just don't see how you could play a big role. Obviously she's played with this team, most players on this team before, but like chemistry wise and things like that, I don't know. I don't know. I like Caroline. I think she's a good player. Obviously when healthy, but I just don't think the role is going to be significant.
Who have you liked in these last few games where you kind of really stepped up defensively and their offense hasn't really taken a hit? What have you seen from players? Like, give me like one or two players that you've just been like, man, without them, we probably would be in a rough shape. And you can't pick like Paige or Azzi or Sarah. You got to pick someone out of that big three.
Yeah, honestly, I think Ashlyn Shade and KK Arnold. I think they've been huge. I think they have been scoring the basketball. I think that, if you don't have Caitlin Chen on the team, they're easily, going to be the next, the next starters. And I think they have defensively, they're quick and I trust them guarding, pretty much anybody you put them on. So I think those two have been huge. I think they're, if without them, I don't think we have the same success. And I just think they're perfect for this team. They're role players, but they're really on that cusp of like, we need them. They are as important as, other big pieces to this team. So I would have to say, say that.
I don't disagree at all. I think KK. Listen, Ashlyn's shown that she has an ability to put the ball on the deck and pull up for jumpers. She did that a couple times against Marquette. She's done that all year. But I love KK's aggressiveness on defense. When you have a deeper bench like Gino has now, you can unleash a girl like KK to kind of to her full potential. She doesn't have to worry about like starters minutes where I have to watch myself, and if I get into foul trouble, I'm screwed because I'm not going to be able to play big minutes in this game. She really has that kind of like feeling of like I can just like create havoc, right? She's like what do they call her, the TikTok menace? Like if she's a menace out there and she gets a bunch of steals and deflections like she does in these games, and then I'll take it a step further. If you put Aubrey on the ball and have KK in there, their defense takes a turbocharge, method that is kind of crazy at this moment, and that is what I'm seeing from this team. It's great that Sarah is playing well. It's great that Paige was super efficient. Gino had a funny moment post game talking about how it must be Oscar night because Paige's reaction to missing a free throw yesterday because it was over dramatic. So he's pretty silly with that stuff. But that's the truth. Like we can talk about all the silliness of like, is Paige the most efficient player in basketball? They're playing inferior competition in the Big East. It's really just how good is UConn. And this defense is what is going to hopefully propel them to a championship, because if they continue to press like they've done all year, especially in these last stretches, I could see them parlaying that into multiple wins down the stretch and making this run so that we're sitting in Tampa Bay and like, man, it's such a nice day out. We're going to go watch UConn play for a national championship. So like that's kind of where I foresee the future in this next month.
Yeah. I mean, it's all about peaking at the right time. I think it's really important to talk about, last Thursday, how many, upsets there were. And even, yesterday was a big game. I don't know if it was yesterday or 2 days ago. It might've been Saturday, USC versus UCLA. USC comes out on
won
top.
again. Yep.
And you saw Notre Dame lost on Thursday. LSU lost on Thursday. Tennessee lost on Thursday. I mean, UConn is obviously they have the advantage because they play in the Big East. You know, their schedule is not super tough right now, but we're playing basketball how we've always been expected to play basketball. And we had some big losses at the beginning of the season, but we didn't have our full team. We weren't up to full strength, and now we're there. And other teams are starting to get a little shaky. Still early, you know, it's just starting to, you know, it's only March 3rd. So still some time to fine tune things up, but I like where UConn stands right now.
I couldn't agree more. UConn is peaking at the right moment. Definitely lost some games early without the key components. So this team is ready to rock once we get ready with the Big East tournament. So when we return, a surprise of sorts. Paige Bueckers was placed into the Ring of Honor in Gampel. We're going to talk about that. Was that unconventional? That surprised some people. I know it surprised me. I mean, it was kind of an interesting one. I want to talk about it when we get back. It's not in a negative way, so everyone relax. When we return, we're going to talk about Paige and the Ring of Honor coming up after the break. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on the fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I'm missing any of my chances. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, you're back on Locked On UConn with your host, Mark Zanetto and Bella Tamano of Hoops Capital of the World. If you haven't subscribed to Hoops Capital of the World, definitely do so. Read all of Bella's articles, including some from Colleen Morrissey. On the men's side, you have Chris Smith, you have myself. We have Tyler Remick, who's an analytics nerd. He's I always say that joking around, but he's got a PhD in economics and can kind of talk about all kinds of wonderful analytics aspects of that. Plus, we have new contributors every day. We have my friend Brian Frederick is going to talk about, trading cards and everything that are going to be involved in that. So check out Hoops Capital of the World when you get a chance. All right. Bella, kind of an odd couple things that struck me about this was not only the fact that Paige Bueckers joins the Ring of Honor. First magnanimous statement. We both agree that Paige Bueckers should be in the Ring of Honor. Yes?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay. So her resume speaks for itself. She was a National Player of the Year as a freshman, deep tournament runs, et cetera, et cetera. One of the most talented players in program history. But on senior day, like I just felt like it was premature. I felt like it was like it couldn't wait until after the season. And because all I could think of was, and I know that men and women do things differently, and that's fine. In essence, the basketball is the same, but it is in essence a different sport. They don't play halves; they play quarters. We could go through that all in all. But I remember last year, Tristan Newton was honored after they won a national championship in the parade. So it kind of just struck me as odd. Did you feel the same way? I mean, you don't have to. I just thought it was an interesting topic.
I did feel the same way. Like you said, her resume speaks for itself. She definitely should be in the Ring of Honor. I just don't think it's the time. Like, I mean, I think also like she doesn't. I just don't know. I think there's a thing that comes to mind for me is this past off season for football. Tom Brady, they got into the Patriots Hall of Fame. They made an exception, and instead of making him wait the normal amount of time, they made the exception for Tom Brady. The way to look at that is that's Tom Brady. That is the greatest of all time. Paige Bueckers is great. Is she the greatest UConn player of all time? In my opinion, no. That's for me. That just shows I don't see the point of of doing it last night. I know it was kind of her second senior night because she had one last year
Right.
and things like that. But I really don't get that. You know what I'm saying? I think that it really doesn't make much sense to me. And you were kind of talking about earlier on the show. It's not like she's not going to come back to a UConn game. You saw Nika Mule, her second game that she came to
Right.
of this season, and she just played on the team last year. Like, I know she's going to Dallas, but, obvious, most likely, obviously things can change, but I know she's going to Dallas, but it's not like she's not going to come back to UConn. Like, I'm assuming she'll at least come back to a game next year and maybe more than that. So
it feels like it feels premature for this reason, right? They're still playing games there. Like, they still will play NCAA tournament games there. So she's gonna literally go out on the court and be like, "Oh, there I am." Like, to me, it's just like I'm joking around with that. It's really not a serious topic. It's just hey, it just struck me as an odd timing because I feel like the only player that had his jersey retired, Tom Brady notwithstanding, and then actually ended up playing in the same arena where it hung was Michael Jordan. Like, I feel like when he retired first, I'm old enough to remember, I believe they had a ceremony for him in like the 93 season, end of like in 93, 94 time ish. And then when he unretired and came back, it's like, it's hanging up there. I think they actually took it down until he, I don't remember. Like, I don't remember exactly. Right. But I just think it's weird. Like, I think it's weird that you would retire a jersey of an active player when the season isn't over.
Yeah, I don't really see the logic behind it. And yeah, if they're gonna play tournament games there in stores, it doesn't really I don't know, it just doesn't make sense to me in my head. Like, I can't really justify it in any way. She should be up there. She deserves to be up there. But I also feel like for her, like, now it's a little bit less special. If they had her come back for a game next year or something, like, that would have been a little more exciting. Oh, we got Paige Bueckers. And now what are they going to do for her? Unless that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't understand now, where do you go from there? Because now there's no other way to really honor her at a high scale like that.
Yeah, because I think if anything, they shot themselves in the foot, because if we're talking about the communications department, and this is, listen, top-notch communications department. This is just a small, silly segment, but I would have loved to have seen a Paige Bueckers Day where she comes out and everyone gives her flowers and people talk about her and all that stuff. And look at that. Because last time I was in stores, they did that for Ben Gordon, right? We had an interview beforehand, and again, I think it was a little out of place. But also, then on top of it, she was the only one who talked on senior night. Like, they gave her the mic, and then then it ended. It was weird. Like, you had other seniors, and I know that's not Paige's fault.
No.
That it was a very rare, as the kids like to say, because I'm old, a very rare L for UConn in that respect. Like, it's just like, why did we not hear from the others? Why don't we hear from Azzi? Why don't we hear from Aubrey? Like, I would have liked to have heard what they had to say before we went off the broadcast. So I don't know. That was my feeling. Did that strike you as weird too, that she was the only one who spoke to?
Yeah, I think that for me, I mean, she had it she had her opportunity last year. And, again, it doesn't take away anything from this year. She should have her opportunity to speak too, but I don't understand why other players didn't. I don't know. I think that I personally think that overall, like you said yesterday, I just think things weren't ran super well. I think, things could have been a little bit better. But is that to say that maybe Azzi does come back? Is that kind of alluding to that fact that she didn't get to speak? Aubrey, I think they stacked him up yesterday, the first 6-year player in UConn history. So I thought that was kind of funny.
Calling her grandma.
What was that?
They're calling her grandma, which is the best part.
Yeah. So yeah, I just think that you saw a lot of tears, and I think a lot of that was because of Paige, but still, I mean, Azzi, Aubrey, Caroline, they all played huge parts. So I didn't love
knowing this fan base, and then we're going to close out. Knowing this fan base, there were tears for everybody, because like, the fact that we talked a little bit about almost everybody today, I guarantee someone's going to be in my mentions later saying, well, why didn't you talk about this player? People have different favorite players, and Paige is obviously the number one favorite player of most people in UConn Nation. But yeah, I wanted to see a little more. I thought it was just disorganized. That's all.
Yeah.
It's no big deal. All right, well, listen, we're gonna be back tomorrow. Bella will be back on Wednesday talking about the women's game. Also, remember, I don't know if you're going to be at the Big East tournament. Not you, Bella. I'm talking to the crowd, if you will, to the fans. If you're going to be at the Big East tournament, I will not be there. But Colleen, who contributes to Hoops Capital of the World and helps with a bunch of stuff of Locked On UConn behind the scenes, is going to be there covering the women at Mohegan. So if you see her, make sure you give her some love, but also try to, I don't know, interact with her, maybe get an interview with her. She's great. She's a huge UConn women's basketball supporter. So hopefully we'll get some good content from her going forward. Bella, have a wonderful rest of your Monday, and we're going to keep it simple. As Diana Taurasi says, if you're smart, you go to Harvard. If you're good at basketball, you go to UConn. Keep it simple, everybody. Go Huskies.